This one is just a simple, functional, bare bones longsword. Really, really nice. I like it, specifically for that reason. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Screen Tested. We are back with another Lord of the Rings blade. This one here is obviously Aragorn's Strider/Ranger sword. This particular design is rather simple but functional, and I love it for that reason. Now, we've done just a couple of Lord of the Rings episodes at this point, and hopefully we'll do a couple more, of course. But when we did the original roundup of, a lot of the main character kind of sword designs, this one got quite a high score because it is just very simple, very plain. It may not be everybody's cup of tea, especially when you compare it to some of the more fantastical designs in the movies. This one is obviously a little bit more simple and a little bit more basic, but that's why I enjoy it so much. So this one here is obviously a battle-ready blade, meaning we can cut with it, we can smash it into things, and we can just generally see how good this particular blade and sword design is. Now, this one comes by way of Swordia. Obviously, they've done a lot of these battle-ready, replicas recently. So if you want to pick one of these up, there will be a link down below. But let's talk about some of the specifications so you guys know what we're dealing with here. So what specifications are we rocking for the Strider sword? Well, it comes in at around about $349, which is a little bit more expensive than something like the Glamdring. However, this particular marking on the blade around about here is actually the same one as on the Witcher sword. Now, that particular sword was kind of a monster, so these are obviously made by the same manufacturing house, and so I'm expecting a lot from this blade. I expect it to hold up really, really well. Now, it comes in at around about 1.6 kilos. Now, that's a little heavier than what I personally would like for a sword of this length. I'm usually wanting something more in the 1.4, 1.5 kilo range. But again, that doesn't mean this is unwieldable by any means. It just means personally, I would probably like it just a touch lighter. Anyway, the blade length is around about 90 centimeters, not massive. Then when it comes to the blade, it starts off at around about a 5 to 6 millimeter thickness and then tapers down. Its distal taper is said to be around about 3 millimeters at the tip, and I believe that. It does look right. Okay, so with those specifications out of the way, let's actually take it out there and start cutting things. It is sharp. It's rather sharp, so it's going to be fun. Let's get to it. It is very simple in terms of a scabbard, but again, I kind of like that. That's kind of what this sword is in its design ideation. So let's talk about it and let's go through it, because there's a lot here that I really like. First and foremost, we should start off with the fact that I think this blade shape and geometry is a little thick, specifically in its taper. I feel like the original one, I might have to check some reference images, but I swear it had a little bit more of a profile taper. Not a huge one, but just a little bit. In terms of the grind lines and how it looks on the blade, it's actually really good. And I feel like I should mention this. Every time I see this symbol, this marking on Swordia blades, I feel like the blade is going to be a monster. This is the same one they had on their Witcher, and they've had on some other blades, and I feel like they turn into monsters, right? These blades are really well made, essentially. When it comes down to the crossguard, pommel, handle, all that sort of stuff, it's really nice. As you can see, finishing is pretty good. I don't necessarily like what they've done here. What they've done is they've just kind of plaited some copper, I would say very thin wire. On the screen used one, they do have kind of a little bit of a gold inlay here. I'm personally just going to probably take these out because I prefer it to just be a nice, kind of divot, right, rather than putting the copper in there. Then we have, I would say, these little extensions from the crossguard onto the handle. These are actually not terrible. In some of the other ones, the House of the Dragon comes immediately to mind. I wasn't really a big fan of them because they weren't finished 100%. This one isn't bad at all. In terms of the central riser, there is nothing really sharp on it that is going to hurt my hands. When I'm using it, it feels fine and good. Same thing with the pommel. It is finished really, really well. And in terms of the peen on the end, I'm actually really happy with it. Look at that. That is a Very nicely finished peen. That's what she said. It has a nice oval handle, and this here, I believe this is screen accurate. So I did load up Fellowship of the Ring to see how screen accurate this color here is. And from what I can tell from a couple of screen grabs and, you know, obviously pausing it at the right moment, there was a little bit of a hint of green. Now, obviously there is a heavy layer of, you know, weathering on the hilt. That was either probably from the production team or even just Vigo using the blade, obviously, on set, on location, and building up grime. But from what I can tell, the dark green does seem to be screen accurate. If I put it in the sun over here, you can see it looks really bright, but in this sort of lighting, it looks really dark, right? But it's a nice green, and I'm actually kind of happy about this. I don't really own many green swords, and I feel like it's nice to just at least have one. So I'm actually happy with the color on it, if you want to be honest. All right, in terms of the sharpness, it arrived reasonably sharp. I'm actually not, one side is kind of a lot sharper than the other, but like this is well enough to cut with, which we'll see in a minute. When it comes to the point of balance, it is around about, I would say maybe 3 inches from the guard, which means that when you actually look at it, it doesn't really have the nicest tip control. It's not bad, I'm not gonna say it's bad, but it's not as nimble as I would like. And you can kind of feel that in the hand. When I'm kind of moving this blade around, it does feel a little, just a little touch heavier than some other blades. And obviously I'm comparing this directly against some of the other kind of swordier, battle-ready Lord of the Rings swords that we've taken a look at. Things like the Glamdring, the Anduril, they had really incredible like balance on them. I really liked them. Even something like the Witcher. The Witcher was balanced phenomenally, but it also had quite an aggressive profile taper. Whereas, like I said, this one is just, like, it's not bad. If you're in the market for one of the Strider swords, this is incredible. This is great. Battle ready, everything. But personally, to me, I would like the balance to be a little bit more nimble, and how it feels in the hand a little bit more. Cuts really nice though. I'll be honest with you. I was like, yeah, it doesn't feel the best when I'm moving around, but it's like, no, cuts awesome. That felt great. Honestly, I like that. It's pretty good, very standard. And I feel like this is important because a lot of this design language of this blade is kind of simple, but not in a bad way. Functional, and I feel like that is the epitome of this blade design. Nothing fancy, nothing crazy, nothing special, especially compared to something like, obviously, you know, Anduril or Glamdring or, you know, Goblin Cleaver, whatever it is, right? This one is just a simple, functional, bare bones longsword. Really nice. I like it, specifically for that reason. I think what they've done here is, if you guys remember back to the Anduril review, right? Very nice balance on it, very nice to cut with, but very floppy. And I think they're trying to avoid, you know, kind of making that same mistake with any of the other blades. So with this one, they've kind of just made it a little bit, just a touch beefier than I think it needs to be. But overall, that felt really nice. Let's do some water bottles. Let's see how sharp this edge truly is. All right, let's see what we got going on here. That had a nice ring to it, and that was an incredibly nice and clean cut. So the edge on this is pretty good. Not the sharpest, but pretty bloody good. So a couple of thrusts. Oof, nice. I'll hold one this way so maybe you guys can see it better. Clean, easy to use. Feels good in the hand as well in terms of like shock and vibration. That's nice. Yeah, I like how it cuts. It is a fun cutting sword. Let's go and smash it into something a little bit harder. Let's see how the flex is, and let's see how the shock and vibration feels against something like wood. If you're enjoying today's episode, you really should consider subscribing. He's leaking over there. Obviously this isn't, a full destructive test. It's really just to see how, obviously the shock, the vibration feels in the hand, and obviously that it should be able to hold up to this, especially obviously with full tang, battle ready, blah, blah, blah. We've done this a million times. All right, let's give it a couple. Now that was an aggressive one. I think, oh shit, that one's in there. Yeah, I mean, we're still good. Blade's still straight as an arrow. And that was, like, that's fucking deep, right? That's what she said, but you know what I mean, right? It feels good in the hand as well. The next test that I want to do for this one is the hanging rope test. This is obviously some nice jute rope here. Not the thickest thing in the world, but it'll be fine for this particular test. Has essentially no structure in it, free form. Let's see if we can cut nice and easy through it. Oh, that one was. Screw it. So for our next test, we're going to take our Strider sword and we're going to thrust in Tony back there, maybe do a couple of slashes and see how it feels. Yes, I am in full armor. No need to worry about it. Let's see what happens. Let's just say I'm getting into the groove. How's that? Yeah, I'm getting into the mood for it. All right, let's see what this thrust thing does though. Incredibly effortless. I just hit the core. Let's go for a slash. Yeah, that opened it up pretty good actually. Even with a new fucking stand, he's still No, that didn't get through though. So let's see how the flex goes on this particular blade. I think this one is going to be a little bit more stout than something like obviously the Anduril, but probably comparable to the Glamdring if I had to guess. Yeah, see that? It's there. I don't know if you can see it, but we're coming up to about here. That's pretty good. That's nice. That is a nice, reasonably flexible blade. Like it's still got flex to it, but at the same time stout enough that in the thrust you're not going to be like drooping and bending and all that sort of stuff like we kind of had with the Anduril, at least the version 1 of the Anduril. I think they've fixed it now, but perfectly fine flex. Super into that. So what do we think of Aragorn's original Strider / Ranger sword? Honestly, I am quite a big fan of it. I think it is rather simple, rather plain, but functional. I mean, there's not really too much that I have to say about it, right? I think the blade shape, geometry, profile, and fit and finish specifically on this version here, this battle ready version, is fantastic. Like when I look at this, there's nothing where I'm like, ah, yeah, there's a problem here, there's a problem there. The grind lines look good. The blade held up fantastic. It feels good in the hand. It is sharp as well. How the blade fits to things like the crossguard, like the fit up and the finish, it's all fantastic. The crossguard finishing, the pommel finishing, it's all fantastic, like especially for this price point, right? Which I think Swordia has been really hitting it out of the park with a lot of their, battle ready functional replicas, right? And this is another edition of them that is fantastic. So I really like it. Now, I guess because technically there is a little bit of fantasy here, we can give it a score. So without further ado, it is time to get into Tyrant's initial thoughts score, or TITS for short, starting off with comfort. Like 10 out of 10. I had no complaints, right? I think some people don't understand, right? When it comes to like things like comfort and stuff like that, it really is, I would say, an interesting scale, because if it's comfortable, then it's comfortable. It's going to score really, really high, just period, right? But if it's uncomfortable, it's going to score pretty badly, because comfort is one of those really, really important parts when it comes to a blade. So the comfort is perfectly functional, perfectly fine, didn't annoy my hands, didn't have any issues. There's nothing wrong with, I would say, any of the transitions to the risers and stuff like that. So 10 out of 10 is perfectly fine. Next up, wieldability. It is a little bit slower than what I had in my mind, right? Now there is some context here, because I have handled the official replicas before, and they are obviously wall hangers. They are stainless steel, heavy pieces of crap. They are not battle ready swords, right? So that is kind of like a separate thing. So when I get the real one, I'm like, well, I expected it to just be a little bit lighter than this. But again, it's perfectly functional. That's just more like a personal preference thing. I am someone who heavily favors blades that have a nicer profile taper. So again, there's maybe a little bit of personal preference in there, but again, 10 out of 10. Like, I don't actually have any issues with the weight, balance, or handling. It's just how I personally feel a little bit there. Next up, design. I mean, this is a 10 out of 10, 100%. This sort of, you know, again, a little bit of bias here, I guess, but this pommel shape and design is perfect for actual functional combat and use. It's comfortable, doesn't get in the way. Very similar to some of my favorite stuff like Scent Stopper, you know, faceted pommels in terms of the crossguard. This is one of my favorite crossguard designs ever. It is very slightly sweeping up, and it has this nice, what would you call that? I mean, like a half diamond cross section. This crossguard design I love, and a lot of you long-time viewers may notice that obviously there is a lot of similarities between this hilt, you know, shape and design, as something like the Dragon Whisperer, and that is not lost on me, of course. And then we get lastly into the effectiveness. Well, I mean, it's a battle ready functional sword, so like, yeah, it's 100% effective. So 10 out of 10. Again, if a design is solid, if it's executed well, and it's functional, it's pretty easy, especially in the sword category, to get a perfect 40 out of 40. And again, that's what this is. It is fantastic. I think a lot of people will like that this one is kind of a lot stiffer than some of the other blades. I think some of you guys might enjoy that. In terms of the balance, I don't think many of you guys will have any sort of gripes. It's just one of those nuances that I personally notice, because obviously I have a lot of blades that I compare directly one-to-one to. But again, if you're in the market for a Strider / Ranger sword, this is a battle ready sword that can actually be used functionally for cutting, for all that sort of stuff, full tang, and it's awesome. I'm actually really happy with it. Really, really happy with it. But okay, that's gonna be all. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed. And as always, I'll see you next week in another episode. Have a good one.